This morning I was listening to the New York Times Daily, and it was a little crazy in my opinion. It was a little wild, partially because they chose to talk about doctors being like doctors and their plight inside of Gaza, at the Al Shifa hospital, at other hospitals in Gaza. Um, and it is a very emotional interview overall. Like, the interviewer literally, I think, cries at a certain point, like tears up, and they had to cut it out. Except um except also, there was a point in the interview where where she basically was just like, what's up with Hamas, what's going on with Hamas, and like, is Hamas stealing your fuel? And the doctor literally was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're asking me about Hamas, you're asking me about politics, like, what's wrong with you? He's like, there's literally dying children that you can hear in the background, and you're asking me about fucking Hamas. Like, what's. And to me, it's like I understand the fascination that journalists have. I understand why they want to know if they can verify or maybe even discredit the IDF talking points about how, like, Hamas is planted directly underneath the hospitals and whatnot. Okay, and like, I get it. I think that's because Israel has made this like a very big talking point. It's still not a justification, obviously, regardless of whether there's tunnel structures underneath the hospital. Regardless of whether tunnel structures exist underneath the hospital or not, it's still completely not permissible to, like, blow up a hospital and behave in the way that they've been behaving, right? It's so crazy. It is utterly and entirely irrelevant. You know what I mean? You can try to square that hole as much as you want to, but I think there's a time and place. You know what I mean? There's a time and place. Dave Cameron just got appointed Home Secretary. Is wild. Imagine if Obama got appointed in the U.S. Yeah. Why are young people so pro-Palestine? That's such a funny thing to ask, like, as a question. It's like a question, but I feel like they're like, we have to fix that. Sorry, just getting here. What are we doing to whose hole? What? I know, New John Oliver dropped on the war, on the conflict, but anyway, let's get started. First and foremost, World Health Organization says Gaza's main hospital is no longer functioning. Let's get started there.
Of hospitals in Gaza. This map shows hospitals in the Gaza Strip. The UN says 20 out of 36 are no longer working. The biggest, Al Shifa, is not functioning at all, according to the World Health Organization. Al Shifa's head of surgery has told the BBC that a third premature newborn baby has died because of a lack of power. There are reports that Gaza's second biggest hospital, Al-Quds, has run out of fuel. It's now 5 weeks since Hamas, designated a terror organisation by the UK government, killed more than 1,200 people in Israel and took more than 200 hostage. Since then, Hamas officials say well over 11,000 people have been killed in Israeli attacks.
That's a crazy way to fucking cover that. Jesus Christ. Hamas officials say. Like, might as well just not even say how many people died at that point. You know what I mean? It's very interesting that, like, they full-blown just do this, like, they full-blown do this thing where it's like, one, Hamas is a designated terror group, which it is. And two, its civil governance branch, like the health ministry, is actually also Hamas, which it is. But packaging it in this way, which they didn't used to, by the way, which they did not used to, packaging in this way is deliberate. I've talked about this quite a bit. It's specifically done to discredit the numbers. And that's what's going
on Gaza. Well, let's go live to Jerusalem now and speak to our correspondent, Tom Bateman. Good morning, Tom. Another week begins. Just talk us through what's been happening overnight.
Well, what we have is this really desperate situation at Al-Shifa Hospital. You were hearing about the World Health Organization talking about a perilous and dire situation, and that is because of the fact that around the hospital now there is very fierce fighting. They're talking about intense bombardment and armed clashes. And so within the hospital, on top of what has been, a very an extremely difficult humanitarian situation for weeks now, it is effectively completely closed, apart from what the Israelis say are safe evacuation routes out. Now, Palestinians say that it is simply not safe. There are dead bodies lining the route, that people have been shot at and people killed when they have tried to leave. So it's extremely perilous. And in the middle of all this huge crisis, with 36 now premature babies taken out of the neonatal intensive care unit because it stopped functioning because of the loss of power, now being kept in a cardiac surgery room without the right equipment. They're not in incubators. They can't be kept properly warm. They have desperate needs. And the doctor there, Dr. Marwan Abu Sada, telling the BBC that he fears those babies will die unless either the hospital gets fuel to power incubators, or
I know that in every way, like, Israel tries to justify all of these ruthless killings. I mean, it's basically just all out slaughter, ethnic cleansing, and ethnic displacement being the main goal here, the main objective. If you listen to the Israeli officials, they'll very clearly define that, very clearly openly state that. But I feel like it's like the slaughter and the death and destruction have gotten to a point where it's like it's a baby in an incubator. Like, these are premature babies that have to survive inside of an incubator. It's like, I know that the president, the Israeli president, can go and be like, we found this book about how this annotated book in a child's library about Hitler, and how this indicates that even children are technically culpable or whatever, and children are Hamas. Like, when you talk about a baby in an incubator, it's like, objectively, it's literally the equivalent of like burning down an orphanage. You know what I mean? I mean, these are children who these are babies who haven't even like fully developed, and I don't know. There's like, it's almost comical when you think about it. It's literally, I don't know. You can't. There's no justification. There's no justification for any of this, obviously. But you can make propaganda, I guess, for the freaks that desperately want to, I guess, cut propaganda to make this seem like it's totally permissible and totally valid and totally legal. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing I can say at this point. Like, I know soft Zionists, like liberals, want to maintain this defense of Israel's actions, and that's what Western media is kind of doing. It's just like giving them an out, but there's no way to, I don't know. There's just simply no way to talk about this. There's no way to talk about what's going on and try to defend it. MSF press release. Doctors Without Borders press release says snipers are targeting patients at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. One of their surgeons is quoted, "In front of the main gate, there are many bodies. There are also injured patients. We can't bring them inside. There's also a sniper who attacked patients." Like, the people inside the hospital and the Doctors Without Borders doctors, or like British Palestinian, international doctors in general, are all collectively saying that this is an atrocity. If you listen to the New York Times Daily podcast, where they talk about the hospital running out of fuel and how it's been under blockade pretty much nonstop, it's basically it's a cemetery. That's what the doctor is saying. And looking at all of this and not having like immediate sheer visceral disgust, I don't know how you can look at a situation like this and go, yeah, I think this is probably valid, normal, justifiable. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the Hamas headquarters are fucking underneath the hospital. Like, you can't. This is unimaginable. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Like, there's one side that is routinely and still continuously lied about pretty much every action that they've taken and tried to make really silly justifications for it. And then all of the victims, when asked, all of the people when asked say, hey, just stop bombing us. You know what I mean? Like, please stop bombing us. Like, we don't know if there is Hamas or not, but just like, please, can you stop bombing us? Or even other doctors who say, no, I've worked there for years. I did not see any Hamas underneath the hospital. But the fact that, I don't know, the fact that there is no empathy, the fact that there's no empathy here for Palestinians says it all, right? I mean, it's just trying my very best to talk about this, but
this
tough.
news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work.
All right, here.
Functioning as Gaza's health system collapses under relentless Israeli bombardment and blockades. On Saturday, Al-Shifa Hospital
They've shut off the lights in like the hallways and stuff at this point. They have like very, very limited fuel.
ran out of fuel, forcing doctors to remove dozens of premature babies from incubators. 6 preemies have already died. Doctors are struggling to keep more than 30 other babies alive. Palestinian health officials have accused Israel of using snipers to shoot at people inside the hospital complex where thousands of displaced Palestinians have sought refuge. Israel's claimed Hamas runs a command center below the hospital. Hamas and medical officials at the hospital have denied the claim. On Sunday, Dr. Mohammed Obeid, a surgeon with Doctors Without Borders, described the dire situation inside the hospital.
The situation now is very bad. We don't have connection. There is no internet.
Wait, what the fuck is going on with this?
Sometimes we have some reason in the call phone. We're on the 4th floor. And also there's a sniper who attacked 4 patients from the inside the hospital. One of them has the gunshot directly in his neck, and he has a quadriplegia. And the other one, he has a gunshot in.
I agree with your opinions on the situation, but I don't get why Hamas is fighting the IDF near the hospital. It looks very bad, and even if they have a base there, they cannot realistically hold their position. I don't know if you understand this, but like, they're being invaded, and children are being sniped, and fucking, people are getting sniped inside of a hospital. At that point, it's ridiculous that you're still talking about optics. What about the optics of fucking literally mercilessly, ruthlessly bombing a fucking hospital and its courtyard and shooting at the people there? Like, this is a psychotic question to ask. Like, wow, what about the optics of Hamas? What are you fucking talking about? What are you fucking talking about? Like, from the position of the Palestinians, they are the ones who are trying to fucking push back against an invading force. You understand that, right? Like, I don't know how else to cover this situation. I don't know what to say. Like, ask Palestinians how they feel. There's a reason why every single fucking, there's 2.2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and Israel can't find a single fucking Palestinian to be like, Hamas is bad, so they have to make up shit. You know what I mean? I'm sure there are Palestinians out there who are like, yeah, we hate Hamas. Except right now, you know why they're not fucking speaking? You know why they're not fucking speaking? I don't give a shit about making the IDF propaganda seem true, dumbass. Okay? Do you not understand self-defense at this point? Do you want to know why when I said when Russia invaded Ukraine on the Eastern Front, they completely eviscerated any kind of goodwill they could have ever had historically from the likes of those who live in Kharkiv who identify like with being Russian or watch Russian television, whatever the fuck, they completely lost all of that because they bombed the shit out of those positions. They bombed the shit out of civilians. It's impossible at that point to feel confident about these people liberating you. Just think about it like a human being, please. There is no circumstance in which being bombed by an invading force is going to cause you to literally fucking go, you know what? These guys that are bombing me are actually liberating me. That's why they killed my uncle. That's why they destroyed my home. That's why they destroyed the beachfront. At this point, when you're talking about the optics of like being fucking blown to bits, and you're not talking about the actual optics of like what Israel has done and what Israel continues to do with the go-ahead of the entirety of the Western world, and you turn around and you go, why is the militia force that's like fighting back against the bombing occupation is insane to me. I genuinely don't understand it. Okay? Like I've said, while there's no proof whatsoever other than Israel claiming, for years, by the way, it's always been like a rumor that you know there's a Hamas headquarters under the hospital. Even if there was a Hamas headquarters under the hospital, you still cannot blow up the hospital. You cannot blow up the people inside of the hospital. You cannot shoot people inside of the hospital. This is insane. For those of you who also don't know, let me explain it further to you. Let's say there's a Hamas militant. Okay? Let's say there's a Hamas militant who's shooting, okay? Who's shooting at Israeli soldiers, okay? Inside of Gaza. First of all, that's technically a militia, and that is legally allowed by international law. That's number one. Doesn't matter if you consider them terrorists. That's the most valid thing that you can do, regardless of whether they're terrorists or not. So that's number one. Number two, when that person is shot, let's say a Hamas militant is shot, and someone takes out a stretcher and carries that person into the hospital, you cannot follow that person into the hospital and kill them, okay? There are rules to waging war. It is illegal and not morally permissible or just to shoot someone on a fucking stretcher. You cannot do that. That is not allowed, okay? Even if there are Hamas militants who are literally like, I love Hamas and I hate Israel, you cannot fucking shoot people on a stretcher. You cannot shoot people in a hospital. There are rules to this. Shooting medics is a war crime. It's, of course, also Israeli policy when you think about it, really. Okay? I didn't know they were firing RPGs from stretchers. No, I'm not talking about the fucking one video of the dude running around with an RPG. It doesn't matter. This is completely... The premature babies that are dying as a consequence of not having enough fuel in the hospital are not the Hamas militants, okay? If anything, all of this shows me is that this is something... hold on one second. I'm talking to Twitch right now as well for something. Anyway, they've been saying all about their opposition according to the idea of Hezbollah also used schools and hospitals for munition storage. Do you know that why the focus is on the Al-Shifa hospital? Right now, Al-Shifa and the Al-Quds hospitals are the two major areas with the highest civilian density. Like everyone that is remaining in northern Gaza, is basically there right now. Okay, every single person from like the interior ministry, okay, all the way to all of the civilians and all of the doctors. That's it. They have all anyone that hasn't been able to leave northern Gaza are taking refuge in these two major areas. Okay? That's what's going on. So taking over Al-Shifa and taking over the Al-Quds Martyrs Hospital is completely taking over the entirety of the remaining life on Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and the northern Gaza Strip. Idea of bullshit is northern Gaza is devoid of people now. I mean, obviously, there's like still 500,000 plus people inside of Gaza. I'm saying that, but the largest population density and all the people remaining in Gaza are in those two hospital areas, in the surrounding areas. There's people in the north still, but you have to realize that the major population centers remaining are around the hospital. Why are you saying civilian building? Once you have weapons and you use a building as a base to launch rockets, it's no longer a civilian building. International law says they can attack that building and Hamas can't. That is a war crime. That is the human shielding. Brother, I need you to understand something. Okay? I need you to understand something very important. First and foremost, I'm trying my very best here. The notion that people are actually like, dude, you're trying to justify bombing a hospital. I don't know what to tell you. I literally don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to like talk about how this is not appropriate at all. Okay? Yeah, a police officer carrying a gun doesn't make an entire school a valid target. I've talked about this already. I've talked about this quite a bit. If there was a school shooting happening, okay? If there's a school shooting happening and it was an active shooting, you don't fucking nuke the entire block that the school is on and kill all the children in the school and kill all the children in the hospital next to the school and kill all the children and their family members on that block. That is not how this works. That is never how this works. So the only reason why you think it would work in this circumstance is because you think that all of the victims inside of this hospital, civilians, the overwhelming majority, if not every single one, obviously not every single person is going to be a civilian. Some of them are going to be enemy combatants as well. You can't, this is not like a valid target. You can't justify that unless you are an absolute fucking sociopathic monster. The expectation that like Palestinians across the board have to be perfect victims, otherwise is perfectly morally permissible to like destroy them and kill them, is a psychotic one. Okay? Libbed up chatters unironically arguing that the Russians, what the Russians did during the Beslan school siege is totally okay. Beslan school siege, also referred to the Beslan school hostage crisis or the Beslan massacre, was a terrorist attack that started on the 1st of September 2004 that lasted 3 days, involved the imprisonment of more than 1,100 people as hostages, including 777 children, and ended with the deaths of 333 people, 186 of them children, as well as 31 of the attackers. It is considered to be the deadliest school shooting in history. They're doing the U.S. strategy in Iraq where all they put the media focus on the Baghdad airport. Once they took over the airport, they managed to take over the country within 3 days as the resistance thought it's over. I think that's why the focus is on Al-Shifa. I mean, it is like the major point of life in the northern Gaza strip right now. For a building to be designated a military target, there are certain parameters that must be met, such as key military infrastructure, entry control points, munitions, military personnel, outnumbering civilians. Just because Hamas may or may not be using the hospital doesn't mean it's a Hamas stronghold. Under no circumstance can you legally bomb a hospital. Yes. State Department memo accuses Biden of spreading misinformation about Israeli war crimes. This is wild. At least 100 administration employees are accusing Biden of spreading misinformation about Palestine now. An internal State Department dissent memo accuses President Biden of spreading misinformation on the Israel-Hamas war and alleges that Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza, according to a copy of the memo obtained by Axios. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I feel disgusting. Like I want to fucking throw up. Especially because people just want to so desperately justify what's happening here. What is this?
More than a month into the war on Gaza, we're starting with the coverage in the U.S. Freedom of expression.
We'll talk about that in a second. All right, let's just finish this.
The abdomen. Some of the people which actually go outside the hospital, they want to go to the south, they bomb them also. They bomb the family from the Shifa hospital today in the morning. There is no electricity actually, there is no water, there is no food. So our team is exhausted. We have two neonate patients die actually because the incubator, it's not working because there is no electricity. Also we have adult patient in the ICU. He died because the ventilator is shut down because there is no electricity. We can see actually the smoke around the hospital. They hit everything around the hospital and they hit the hospital many times.
That was Dr. Mohammed Obeid, a surgeon with MSF, Doctors Without Borders, inside the Al-Shifa hospital. On Sunday, Democracy Now! Reached another doctor in Gaza City, Dr. Fadel Naim.
We at Al Ahli Arab Hospital, the Baptist Hospital, are the only functioning hospital in the Gaza City. All the injured people and other.
What's with all the Trump 2024 PSYOP propaganda in this community all of a sudden? What are you talking about? Who the fuck is saying Trump PSYOP propaganda? Have you seen the insane amount of Hasanabi heads advocating for voting against Joe Biden? That's your major point of contention here? That's what you care about? Are you fucking insane? What's wrong with your brain, dude? Really rewire yourself, please. And chatters, don't fucking yell at this person, please, okay? I hate when people do this shit. When I pull someone up, let me yell at them. You don't have to do that, okay? I think that, as I've said already, especially as the election is a year out, trying to extract concessions from your elected leaders is morally just and very good, and at the basis of the democratic process. If the goal is to constantly say, well, the other side is much worse, which is objectively true. Donald Trump would be worse than Joe Biden, except Joe Biden is currently continuing Donald Trump's Israel policies, and doing it with vociferous support. Ultimately, you still have to try to get your side to do the things that you think are correct and right. If you don't do that, if you don't fucking do that, then what's the process? I don't understand. Like, what's the reason? What's the entire reason for voting for a politician at all? This doesn't make any sense. This does not make any sense whatsoever. I don't understand this. If the goal isn't to try to get your politicians, to get the people that you're voting for to like do your bidding when there is like popular support for a particular thing, then why are you even voting at all? I genuinely don't understand it. I don't. Also put pressure on another candidate to primary Biden since he's objectively a bad candidate. I mean, he is. And that is there is a time to talk about that, but like I don't understand. I really don't understand. Like, these are the people that said we're going to push Joe Biden left, just vote for him. It's just team sports at this point, and you just want your fucking politician, you want your team to win for no reason other than to say your team won. I'm sorry. Like, what could Joe Biden do? As long as Trump is worse, then if Joe Biden is, let's say, as bad as Donald Trump was last time around, is that okay? Is that all right? Should we not try to change Joe Biden's opinions? Should we not try to change Joe Biden's policies? Why should we not do that? And trying to extract concessions by saying you're not going to vote for them is actually a very important and very good thing to do. This isn't like about being a leftist. This is not about like being a leftist or a Marxist or loving Trump or loving Joe Biden at all. This is completely outside of that. This is just, if you're a good Democratic Party supporter, let's say you really want socialized medicine. You're a liberal, you love liberalism, you are a social democrat, and you really want socialized medicine. It has happened in other countries. You want it in the United States of America. Should you just shut the fuck up all the time? Let's say there's enough momentum that it could possibly happen. Okay? Stopping Israel from engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign is so much easier than implementing a socialized healthcare structure. But even then, okay, even in that situation, like, should you just not demand it? Should you not make demands of the person that you're voting for? This idea is not just liberalism. The idea that you cannot ask your politicians, you cannot make demands out of your politicians, is not liberalism. It's something different. It's entirely different. It's just like team sports. Like it's a deliberate confession that you don't care about any of the policies. You just want your guy to win. Like, it destroys the entire principle behind the democratic process. Why is there a democracy at all then? You know? Why is there a democracy at all? And I think it's because a lot of people just don't care. A lot of people don't care about what's going on in Palestine. Let's be fucking real. But they don't want to say that because they're like progressive liberals. They have claimed that they're progressive liberals, and they don't really give a shit that like Palestinian children are being ruthlessly slaughtered in Gaza. So instead of openly admitting that, which they don't want to, because then they would lose their liberal credentials, I guess, right? They just simply say, it's really messed up that you're making this a red line. Ethnic cleansing is a red line for you. It's kind of fucked up. Just say it. Just say you don't really care about it that much, because there is no other argument against like being a year out from the election and standing against all of these people that are making a completely morally just and righteous demand. You know, it's perfectly reasonable. The idea that this is ridiculous and you shouldn't ask for this because the other side is worse is at the heart of how we have created a process in which even when Joe Biden is the president, over so many years and so many election cycles, we've ratcheted towards right-wing politics in this country, and we are creeping towards actual full-blown fascism in many ways. Okay? And there's nothing we can do about it. There's no way to, the lesser evil voting. The lesser evil voting is just a way to tell everyone to just shut the fuck up. Don't make any demands. Don't make any demands whatsoever. Like the idea that like all these Democratic Party candidates are entitled to your votes is exactly how we got is exactly how we put up Hillary Clinton. It's exactly how we put up Joe Biden. It's exactly how the DNC got away with doing whatever the fuck it wanted to do over and over again when Joe Biden was objectively going to be a horrible, horrible second term, no matter what, because he's too old. And we knew this. We knew this from years ago. We knew this 4 years ago. He was too old 4 years ago. But, of course, everybody promoted Joe Biden as the guy, the only guy who can beat Donald Trump, and now we have to deal with it. The idea that, we can't make any we can't even get any concessions out of the Democrats that we vote for means that you don't care about democracy at all. You care about like certain aspects of it. For the most part, I think you care about, you know, the Democratic Party being in power, it seems. But you don't necessarily care if they do anything, really, as long as it's not the Republican Party. There are valid concerns about Republicans gaining prominence. But what you fail to recognize is that, you know, without the Democrats doing something to fight back against them, you might as well be just slowing down the Republican creep. Karşıda şeyde parking lotta. Parking lotta. Evet. Onu sokağa koyar mısın? Evet, lütfen. Teşekkürler. Anyway. Here, let's get back to this.
People like people with hypertension or diabetes mellitus or diarrhea or asthma or children with dehydration, cancer patients, patients with kidney failure who need dialysis, pregnant women, and other cases are coming to our hospital because they have no other possibility to go to other hospitals. The other hospitals are surrounded by the Israeli tankers, like the biggest hospital in Gaza, Shifa Hospital, and Nasser Pediatric Hospital. Some of the angio hospitals are closed because of the shortage in foil and equipment. Since yesterday, we received more than 300 to 400 injured people and tens of other people who had other health problems. We had to do some surgical interventions in the corridors and on the courtyard because of the shortage of anesthesia, drugs. Our biggest problem is the shortage in manpower because we are a small hospital. We are not prepared to receive such like these numbers of patients at one time. Many volunteers came to help us, but we need specialized doctors in different specialties, in general surgery, in neurosurgery, chest surgery, vascular surgery, and gynecology, in pediatricians. Unfortunately, we couldn't help many of these patients. Some of them died because we couldn't do anything for them.
That was Dr. Fadel Naim speaking Sunday from Al Ahli Al Arabi Hospital in Gaza City. To talk more about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, we're joined by Dr. Tanya Haj-Hassan. She's a pediatric intensive care physician who works with the humanitarian aid organization Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, or Doctors Without Borders. She's in regular contact with health professionals in Gaza and previously worked as a medical trainer in Gaza and the West Bank. She's the co-founder of the social media account Gaza Medic Voices, which shares firsthand accounts from healthcare professionals in Gaza. On Saturday, she took part in a vigil outside British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's office in London. She broke down while reading an urgent message from the director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, Dr. Nidal Hadrous.
We, as medical staff, want to leave, but we cannot. We might not survive until the morning.
Dr. Hassan breaks down as she tries to read a statement from the doctor in Gaza.
They're trying to be, they're like, the thing is, everyone tries to go, well, what about Hamas? What about Hamas? And the reason why people do that is because, like, they want to make it morally permissible to kill all of these people, like these doctors, the children, because Hamas is there. Okay? And from where I'm standing, I don't give a fuck who's there. Okay? I don't care. I don't care if Hamas is there. Okay? I don't. This is ridiculous. This is completely ridiculous. It's insane to me that you know, there's Hamas there. Okay? And that's why we have to do this. No, there has to be red lines. And there are red lines. I don't understand it. They didn't even try to prove Hamas is there. They do. They do try to prove it. They try to prove it by, they put up a fake doctor. Okay, here's a couple of different things. This has always been like the suspicion. Okay, there's always been this rumor, been around for a very long time, that the Al-Shifa hospital is like, is on top of like the Hamas headquarters. This has always been a thing. Okay, the doctors that have worked there, international doctors, have said that there is no such situation there. I believe them. Why wouldn't I believe them? Why would I believe the Israeli rumor? It could be true, but it doesn't change the reality that, like, there is no genuine evidence to show that, and all the evidence actually shows the exact opposite. So the question is, all these people have to be in on it, I guess. The IDF tried to show that there was a tunnel under the hospital. It was very badly edited. Yeah, they put up a fake doctor.
But the world has to know.
They put up a fake doctor who's like holding a fucking stethoscope, like literally to be like, oh, I'm a real doctor. Like, look at me.
Ya Allah, I can't believe I'm doing this. But the world has to know what Hamas is making here. They're taking over the entire
Fake explosion noises.
hospital. They're taking over the fuel, the medicine. I have nothing to treat with. I had to fix a fracture for a 5-year-old boy.
It's just so insane. It's so insane that like this is what we have here. Like this is the evidence. The evidence is like fake doctors, okay? Fake doctors being like, "Please come in and blow up hospital. This is the only way. This is the only way that we can get rid of Hamas. Hamas, please blow up the hospital in Gaza. Hamas is here." Okay? And like holding her fucking hijab, perfectly clean outfit, holding a stethoscope. They should be like, I'm a doctor. Fake bomb sounds, no fucking additional noise. No additional noise in the background. You've heard the doctors give interviews, okay? You've heard the doctors give interviews from inside the hospital this past week. Does it sound like that? Yeah. Yes, it's Palestine that has a Pallywood situation going on. Exactly. Every accusation is a confession. Okay? They say Palestinians are lying. They say Palestinians are lying about all of the bombing and all of the little babies that Israel has killed. They're actually doing makeup and it's fake, which is an insane thing to say. Meanwhile, they're making this shit up in order to like justify bombing the hospitals. Yeah, of course. It's completely ridiculous.
Allah. Please, if you hear me, please leave, run away, don't stay here, please. يا عالم يا ناس اطلعوا من هون.
Anyway, so she's so obvious in Israeli is funny. Her Israeli accent is extremely obvious. Yeah, it's just I don't even give a shit about the accent. Like it's very clearly fucking fake. Okay, and none of the doctors that are at El Shifa have ever seen this woman. Okay, here it is. I can report that 3 Doctors Without Borders MSF staff currently at the El Shifa Hospital said today that they've never seen this woman in this apparent fake video, which has been viewed 12 million times before being deleted from an Israeli government account. This closely echoes a 2011 hoax. In 2011, Israel government shared a YouTube video by a man who claimed to be an Israeli gay rights activist who said he was discriminated against by Gaza flotilla organizers. The video was exposed as a hoax. John Ronson set out to find the actor in it. John Ronson, my goat.
The mystery out there, an experience I went through recently.
The Gaza flotilla is the one with Mavi Marmara. Remember when I told you guys like the Turkish humanitarian aid mission where they blow what? Wait. Okay.
The fight for gay rights, for human rights. It was hurtful and even a little heartbreaking. I've been active in the gay rights movement since college. I heard a lot of stories about flotillas and convoys from Europe trying to reach the Gaza Strip. The names of the group sounded impressive. Viva Palestina, Free Gaza Movement, IHH Humanitarian Relief. I thought, this is something I want to be part of. So I decided.
He said the IHH This is Turkish, by the way. I think he might be Turkish as well. His accent sounds like he could be Turkish. But he's talking about how, like, the IHH is a Turkish humanitarian AIDS mission, but it's like an Islamist cutout as well. But I won't get into the details of that. That's a long, convoluted process. But they also literally did the humanitarian flotilla that pushed through the Israeli blockade from sea, and then the Israeli commandos dropped in from fucking attack helicopters and mercilessly slaughtered a bunch of the humanitarian aid workers, and then tried to turn around and go, oh, remember, well, these guys are actually terrorists. Like, look at all the weapons they had on the ship, and the weapons were just, like, knives. Like, they couldn't even find anything, so they were just like, look at all the weapons we have on the ship. I've talked about this quite a bit. It's the Mavi Marmara situation. I think this guy...
I tried to contact one of these groups based out of London. I sent them an email. I explained that I lead a network of gay rights activists, and that we'd love to bring some pride to the next flotilla. After about a month, I get a short email from the London group saying that the participation of my LGBT network would not be possible, since it would not be in the overall interests of the flotilla. I was surprised.
Look at this fucking fedora.
And a bit insulted. Who are these people?
Unlike most homemade YouTube videos, there seemed to be a second unit getting B-roll of Mark Pax in the corner of the room and following him down the street. So I decided to check his story out with the Free Gaza movement in London.
We're the only ones in the flotilla with an office in London.
So it would have had to have been you?
If he's contacted London, then he would have come through here.
And you've not had an email from him?
No. And I had checked all the Free Gaza email accounts. He hasn't contacted us at all.
Yeah, I mean, also, if he had actually contacted, unironically, the IHH, they probably would have been like, yeah, fuck off. Let's be real. Because that is, like, unironically, a very conservative, very Muslim, very fundamentalist, Islamist conservative outfit. That's what it is. So I guess he just like approached the wrong guys. Anyway, the actor refused to say who made the video, but as I reported at the time, it was boosted by David Saranga, an Israeli diplomat who taught students to promote Israel online with guerrilla marketing. As Mark Owen Jones reports, the anti-Hamas video supposedly recorded in the Gaza hospital this week was shared by an official Israeli government account for communicating with Arabic speakers before being deleted amid widespread suspicion that it was fake. And they deleted it. They deleted the video because it was fake. They've been doing this non-fucking stop. Okay. Other ways that they've tried to justify it is by making these like weird ass, like CGI animated, videos claiming that there are massive hospital tunnel networks under the hospital. There's evidence there. There are there's animated animated videos just fine that there's tunnels underneath. Bro, you filled it up way too much. Stuffed it a little bit, it seems, in the front. Yeah, okay. 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 Well, I freeballed it, unlike you and Will. Yes, I did. Yeah, I freeballed it. I didn't. Anyway, I can't talk about this right now. This is so serious, and I'm being so unserious. Okay. Thank you, Rob, for the raid. What? On that. Okay, it's fine. They just dropped within an hour the live action tour of the tunnels into the hospital. Here, this is, I guess this is exclusive raw footage. Watch IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari walk through one of the Hamas subterranean terrorist tunnels, only to exit in Gaza's Rantisi hospital on the other side. Inside these tunnels, Hamas terrorists hides, operate, and hold Israeli hostages against their will.
One of the senior terrorists who is the head of the operation.
Notice how this is in English. Remember, the reason why this is in English is because this is for the Western media.
Naval operations that led the raids into Israel. His house is right next to a school. His house is 200 yards from the hospital of Rantisi. Next to his house, there is a tunnel.
I saw this list of everything the Israeli official accounts have posted and deleted.
Now I want to show you an operational tunnel. The tunnel is built with electricity. We first saw the solar panels, then the electricity goes here, and it goes down directly to the tunnel. Now you can see the tunnel. You can see the tunnel. The tunnel is let down more than 20 meters down. The robot found a door that is...
No, they are in Gaza, and they do have tunnels. Chat. Okay, this is a byproduct of like unironically lying about everything, and Israel does this so much that like people immediately go, oh, this must be fake. No, of course there are fucking tunnels. I've literally never said that there aren't tunnels. Of course, I've literally time and time again repeated that there are plenty of tunnels underneath Gaza. The entire strip has certain populated areas where there's a complicated tunnel network underneath it. Okay, it's true. This part is true. This part is correct. Okay.
Bulletproof. It's explosives proof. So it.
I don't know if this is actually a service hatch or literally a fucking Hamas tunnel, but it doesn't matter. The idea that like there are tunnels under most cities. I know exactly. Everybody knows that there are tunnel systems underneath Gaza, underneath the Gaza Strip, 400 kilometers worth that we know of. Okay, that part is true. That part is real. That's where most of the hostages are too.
Like a hard evidence, a clear evidence that the hospital direction is connected. This is a cover tunnel. It's part of the same floor and it slides down here. So it's a cover tunnel so nobody can find it. This is Rantisi Hospital. And this is the place where I showed you the tunnel. I want you to see. This is the back side of the hospital. Hamas used this hospital. Tonight we have entered into this building. I will show you the evidence. Let's enter into the hospital. We're now entering into the area.
Why is he bleeding?
Of the hospital where we had
Did he get
found
hit?
the evidence. This operation was conducted by Israeli Special Unit, the Israeli Navy SEALs.
Did he fall in the tunnel? What happened? Did he bump his head in the tunnel? What's going on?
It's still an operation that is conducting. And I'm showing you the first evidence to see.
I like the raw footage that's like heavily edited. Anyway.
I want to show you a room where we found all the gear, the operational gear of Hamas. Hamas is using...
They say the tunnels are explosion proof, so why are they bombing? Well, I'll tell you why they're bombing. The real reason why they're bombing is because they want to kill everyone indiscriminately on top of the tunnel networks because they don't want a single fucking person to die. And from their perspective, it's totally valid to kill as many people as possible. There's a secondary or maybe even a primary reason, the primary reason being ethnic cleansing and ethnic displacement. But ultimately, even from the most like let me defend Israel point of view, okay, even from the most like liberal analysis of the situation, they are doing it specifically because they can get away with bombing indiscriminately and then go into the tunnel network and actually blow it up, because you can't blow up these tunnels with missiles for the most part. They are 10 meters. They're dug in 10 meters deep into the ground. So what they have to do is basically go find the entrance of the tunnel network and drop bombs inside of the tunnel network. Sometimes they go directly into the tunnel networks, and the tunnel networks are booby-trapped, so they die inside of the tunnel networks. So that's the reason why they have to, they literally have to clear out the area around it, to clear out the area on top of it. Now, obviously, there's a better way to do this. This is part of the reason why you have to. I mean, even bunker busters, chat, even bunker busters, you have to remember, like 10 meters underground. It is very deep. If there's one thing that can fucking stop shelling, it's just the ground. The ground is very powerful at fucking stopping most explosions. Okay? 10 meters is 33 feet underground. So the point is, the reason why, even from like the most, even if I were to be as charitable as humanly possible, which is inhumane in this circumstance, the reason why they blow up everything, the reason why they fucking blow up everything is because they don't actually want to do a precise, they don't want to do any kind of like precision striking, any kind of like military operations, because they don't want to fucking have any of the IDF soldiers die. Because the life of an IDF soldier in the minds of the IDF is far greater than 1,000 fucking Palestinian children. That's it. 65 feet underground, vent shaft, tunnel network. Yeah. The Gaza Strip is a harrowing pitfall, soldiers have learned. to expect from urban warfare. This is how this works, okay? That's why they're doing it. That's why they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about who the fuck they're killing. And because Gaza is also very densely slammed, densely packed, they can they can just claim like, well, a rocket came from this area. They work with really shitty intelligence half the time as well. And then blow up an entire 4-story building that had a pizza restaurant in it, that had real human beings hiding in it, and then claim that this was a high priority target that they blew up to justify it after the fact. And it's always bad intel. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's bad intel or not. Because nobody gives a shit about Palestinians. That's the point I'm trying to make. When you don't give a shit about the Palestinian lives, you are way readier to accept that this is perfectly valid and perfectly legal and perfectly just as a military operation. We've looked at the tunnels ourselves. Yes, inside the Hamas terror tunnels that Israel's been bombing. We covered it before. We had I think it was Hind Hassan, right, that went down into the tunnel system. Yes, I watched it.
Hospitals, like we showed the evidence in Shifa Hospital, in other hospitals.
Like he says, we show the evidence in Shifa Hospital. They haven't. They have not.
We are now seeing it in live in Rantisi Hospital. An operation still conducting right now. Look.
What's your suggestion to fight Hamas then? Serious question. That's a great question. You cannot fight Hamas. You have to fight it politically. You have to eviscerate Hamas's political power. That's it. It's a political problem. Because the reality is, just like you can't fight the Taliban, just like you can't fight any of these other fucking formations of civil governance, you can just do what you did in Afghanistan. Bomb it mercilessly, have the Taliban grow in its ranks, and then, fuck off and leave the country to them after you're done blowing the shit out of the country. You can't do that. There's no way. There's no way to engage with them in this way. My counter has been, what is your suggestion to fight mass shooters? Yeah. Like, this is a political problem. This is not a military problem. You cannot solve this militarily. That is precisely the reason why every single incursion into Gaza has led to no meaningful crippling of Hamas at all. Because there are always going to be more people that want to survive, that want to live free, that want to be rid of the occupation. And the more you kill their parents, the more justified they feel about it.
Look at what Hamas is holding inside the hospital. I want you to understand.
Like, this is so funny. This always strikes me, ironically, as like, this literally feels like, what do you call it? It feels like the NYPD caught like the big drug ring bust, right? And then they have like one fucking dime bag or something. It always feels so funny. No, of course, they put it in the same area so they can film it, chat. They gather it all into an area. But what you have to remember is like this is, with the exception of like the missiles and the grenades, this is like an average American compound, okay? This is not like a serious, valid military target. They're trying to make this come across like as a serious, valid military target by putting all these fucking weapons in one area to be like, look at what we've extracted here. It's ridiculous. Average American car, yeah. Every average American is a valid military target. Huh. Yeah, drug bust photos with like 6 cell phones and $38 in ones and like 8 dime bags. You know what I mean? To be like, look, we busted up the worst operation we've ever found. And it's like, do you think dropping $250,000 worth of munitions into this fucking vicinity, just in this specific area, and then like deploying multiple brigades is justifiable for what you have extracted here? Do you think that even from a standpoint of like economy, does this make sense? To me, it does not. Right? No, you haven't missed me cover John Oliver yet. We will watch it.
This kind of gear is a gear for a major fight. These are explosives. These are...
Like, come on, dude. Come on. You literally have, like, more shit on you than what you're pointing to.
Vest with explosives. Yeah, it's a body vest for terrorists to explode on forces. Among hospitals, among patients, we have hand grenades, Kalashnikovs, and then we have the RPGs. People shooting RPGs from hospitals.
Yeah. They haven't been able to find one guy. There's the only evidence so far that the IDF has been able to show is like one guy with an RPG running in the vicinity of a hospital. I've seen that video. That's pretty much it. None of which justifies blowing up every hospital in the fucking strip, but it's crazy. How come there's no rocket launcher with RPGs? Is it fake? No, they probably fucking ran away. Like they when they blew up this area, the operatives probably fucking ran away. What do you mean? Anyway, I'm gonna run the 3-minute ad break here, by the way, before I forget, because I am forgetting. Okay, here.
This is Hamas firing RPGs for hospitals.
I hate this.
The world
I'm probably not
has
gonna
to
watch this video.
understand who is Israel fighting against. We are now in the basement, and in this basement we found a motorcycle. They were all used in the massacre of the 7th of October. They even have bullets in this motorcycle. So they came back from the massacre on the 7th of October into Rantisi Hospital with hostages on a motorcycle. We're still researching this. Yards from here, we find the chair, a woman, clothes, and a rope. A rope next to the legs.
The fuck we're still researching this, whatever the fuck that is.
It's a baby bottle in a woman, clothes, and a rope. A rope next to the legs.
Great example. So how do you deal with that? By blowing it up? Really? Like, you're saying that these guys put the hostages there in the basement before they moved them to an actual tunnel system, and your fucking goal here is to what? Like, blow up the hospital so the Israeli victims die as well? Like, what the fuck?
And look above this. Look above it. It's a baby bottle. It's a baby bottle in a basement. Above a World Health Organization sign. This is a suspicion for an area where hostages were being held. We're now looking at an infrastructure. You don't need to build something improvisedly in a hospital in the basement. Unless you want to hold someone in the basement, you don't.
What? Abi tünelleri hiç bombalamadılar mı? Yok, bombalıyorlar. You can't. The only thing they can do is just like blow up the entrance to the tunnel. Really, they don't want to go inside the tunnels. So they just like drop bombs. They will go up to a tunnel. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the videos, but I mean, I watch it. They'll go up to the tunnels. They'll go up to the tunnels through the entrance and like drop C4 into it. They don't want to go inside. And it's all a matter of like trying to defend, like it's all a matter of like trying to ensure that like no Israeli soldier dies, basically. And it's not a good way to conduct military operations, and most people would not conduct military operations in that way, especially in like such a dense urban area. And I literally mean like even the fucking American military, who is dog shit, okay, and genocidal. So no, literally, guys, you have to understand, like, the rules of engagement and the complicated math equation of like civilians versus valid military targets is completely unhinged in the way that Israel is conducting its operations in Gaza. Okay? Like, there is no comparison. There's no valid comparison. And part of it is because they just don't care about the civilians. They consider, in my opinion, every single Palestinian civilian as an enemy combatant. Like, that's what I think is going on. Like, there is no justification for this whatsoever. And I think that's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason why they're just like talking about, you know, babies reading copies of Mein Kampf or whatever the fuck, right? Because it's like they partially want to, I don't know, they partially want to make it seem like it's you know, everyone's a legal target, a valid target. They're unironically not using combined arms tactics correctly from what I've seen. They all hide in the APCs, which means their armor has no cover from dudes or RPGs. Yes, same shit the Russians do, which is one reason why they've lost so much armor. Yeah, they are doing that. The difference is, you know, the CIA and the American military and like the entire Western world is not arming Hamas. Yeah. So, am I the only person who feels the evidence showed is a bit too convenient, like a woman's dressed next to a robe and a baby bottle? I don't know. I mean, look. I have no reason to believe anything that the Israeli government has said because, like, they lost that privilege a long time ago. But it could be true. It might not be planted. The point is, it's still not valid to fucking blow up a hospital on top of this this placement area that they had for hostages for a brief moment. Okay, it's not.
I don't want anyone to see him. Again, we're in the same basement, and here we see diapers, and we see, I don't know, maybe something. We see diapers. I want you to see this room. It's in the basement of the hospital. We can see this area is a closed area.
Yeah, also, like, the explosive vest thing is weird because, like, I haven't heard of like a suicide bombing for a very long time. Like, I haven't heard of Hamas using suicide vests in combat, especially. I don't think that is a part of the modus operandi. They used to use suicide bombings on military targets, and then they swapped it over to not just military targets, but, like, civilian targets as well. But I haven't ever seen I haven't seen them use a suicide vest in a very long time, as a matter of fact.
From the rest of the hospital. We can see the ventilation air that was done improvisedly to this area, and we can see infrastructures that was built in here, toilets, shower, a small kitchen, will provide the terrorists their needs. Also conduct a hideout where terrorists take hostages and
I don't get it. Like, this is just the basement
now
of a hospital.
entering into the room where we suspect the hostages were being held. I want you to look at this room. People are putting curtains with nothing above, just wall. No reason to put here a curtain unless you want to film hostages and deliver a movie. There is a list. This list, in Arabic, this list says we are in an operation. The operation against Israel started in the 7th of October.
Okay, when I see this shit, I'm like, okay, dude, sure. I don't know why they didn't show the tunnel entrance under the hospital though. I don't really understand what happened there. It's not a list, it's just dates and times. It's just a week calendar. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, this feels like a skit. What's going on? I don't know. It could be fucking true. I don't know.
She sits down. She covers her eyes. Her colleagues also in blue hospital gear put their arms on her.
We might not survive till the morning. We don't want to be killed here. Just only because we remain committed to our patients and our medical profession. I am calling for help urgently. Please do whatever you can through your government or the international, the ICRC, the Red Cross, to arrange a safe corridor for the medical staff. Please treat this as top urgent. This is the director of the major trauma hospital in Gaza. I'm going to leave you with one more message. To bomb a hospital means to terrify sleeping patients, to break windows over their heads, to make the walls tip onto their bodies, to rip out ventilators and burn oxygen tanks, to ruin equipment that can help human millions of times.
That was Dr. Tanya Hassan, pediatric intensive care physician who works with the humanitarian aid group Doctors Without Borders, reading an urgent message from the director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, Dr. Nidal Hadrous. Dr. Hassan, thank you so much for joining us. You must be, to say the least, beyond exhausted. You were reading that statement in London. I last saw you in Jordan, and now you're in Toronto, Canada. Can you talk about the latest? That was Saturday. This is now 2 days later.
Yeah. Just to be clear, you know, this was a vigil with multiple healthcare providers present who have been working in the Gaza Strip for over a decade. And we're all in tears. I mean, every day we feel like we've reached the worst. And I'm going to quote one of my colleagues in Gaza, a young female surgeon, who said, every day we think that we've reached the worst thing that could ever happen, and it's impossible that the world will be silent to it, and it will definitely get better. And we finally reach the end. And then the next day it proves that there's something even worse. And I share that sentiment. We have descended into a very dark era for humanity. Let me just paint a picture for you of the conditions as far as I know them right now at El Shifa Hospital. I'd been receiving updates up until about an hour and a half ago. It's very difficult to receive updates. As you know, communication has been cut off, so they're intermittent. There's certain individuals who have intermittent connection. El Shifa Hospital is the largest trauma hospital in Gaza. It is under complete siege. It has been come under a direct attack by Israeli forces for over a week now. The medical staff, including Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF staff, are physically in the hospital at the moment. There are patients there in critical condition, hundreds of patients, and there are thousands of internally displaced individuals who are still inside that hospital, completely under siege, surrounded by Israeli tanks. They have no access to food. They're surviving on minimal dates and biscuits that are left in the hospital. They have no access to water. They describe being very thirsty. And as you know, they have no access to electricity. After the fuel supply was cut off, the electricity supply was cut off, and more recently, the solar panels were bombed. They describe over 100 bodies lying on the ground, decomposing, dead bodies that they cannot bury. This is after having to dig mass graves in the garden of the hospital. The morgues cannot be cooled to preserve the bodies. As you know, there's no electricity. So they're decomposing. The intensive care unit was targeted twice in the last 24 hours. There are 28 patients there. 2 of them have passed away over the course of the evening. These are the adult patients.
Someone messaged me about the idea of killing Israelis. The level of destruction would have been impossible by Hamas. But there's a lot of eyewitness testimonies, and we cannot investigate what's happened yet, but the evidence is there for everyone to see. What do you mean? She deleted this after enough people told her that this is just a calendar that lists the days of the week. No apology, of course. Found in the basement of the Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza, a schedule showing the names of Hamas terrorists who guarded the hostages. Every name on this list is a dead man walking. I feel like it's Baghdad Airport version Gaza. Yeah.
They have no access to oxygen. Dialysis patients who require electricity to run the dialysis machines because they have kidney failure.
Chat. Israel's Western-focused propaganda relies on the West not really listening to Arabic speakers and not really knowing Arabic, right? I say this with all sincerity. They have also done this time and time again. They literally fucking posted a Arabic mother, a Palestinian mom, yelling about how Israel killed his children, his 30-year-old son, who was also a father himself. They fucking posted it. Their official account posted it, changed the subtitles underneath it to say like, oh, I hate Hamas. Hamas is actually killing us. Israel is going to save us. I much prefer Israel to Hamas. The fact that they can do that, like, shows me that they're just fucking gross. They're gross. There is no end to the madness here. There's no end to like whatever lies they will tell. And a lot of that is done specifically to flood the market with as much misinformation as possible and then move on because there's no repercussions for it. There is no repercussions for it whatsoever. You just move on. Millions of people see it, you delete it quietly, and then you move on. No media member has been like, why do you guys keep lying? I have yet to see a single fucking mainstream media person. So why does the official Israeli accounts and Israeli politicians routinely fucking lie about this shit?
Do not have access to those dialysis machines. I can describe to you in detail what death will look like for these patients. Toxins will develop in their bloodstream. They will become overloaded with fluid because they cannot pee it out. They cannot pee the toxins out either. They will feel very unwell. They will probably get very confused. They'll have difficulty breathing, and eventually they'll die. This is a slow, horrible, painful death, preventable, painful death, like all the deaths in Gaza. Anyone who moves inside the hospital is getting directly killed. 2 nurses were killed by snipers in the last 24 hours. Anyone who tries to leave the hospital is targeted. You mentioned the 38 premature newborns, 3 of whom who've died are currently outside of their incubators at risk of hypothermia without access to oxygen, and I'm not sure how they're going to provide them with all the things they need, including food. This is an entire hospital that's completely cut off, and we've had very little to no news from the other hospitals in the north of Gaza. Last we heard, they're completely surrounded, like El Shifa Hospital. And, you know,
Israel's justification for sieging the hospital is the claim that it's like the Hamas headquarters underneath it, and somehow that like Hamas is utilizing the hospital. As far as like the evidence that they've shown from this other hospital that was not in use at this point that they've blown up already, I'm not familiar with that other hospital, but as far as that other video that they showed, it's not good enough. It's not good enough to keep killing mercilessly and ruthlessly the people that are on top of this active hospital, including international doctors and Palestinian doctors alike, working round the clock to save people's lives the best of their fucking ability.
We're in
Do we know that is even a hospital? I'm not sure about the other place that they're saying.
a situation where there has been a systematic attempt to destroy civilian Palestinian livelihood and existence in all of Gaza, not just the north. 30% of the killed have been in the south of Gaza, which is supposed to be the safe zone. Humanitarian corridors, or so-called humanitarian corridors, are called the corridor of death by Gazans because they get directly targeted as they're trying to flee on these corridors. You know, Doctors Without Borders, and I mentioned, we're really struggling to contact a lot of the staff. One of my colleagues who I know at El Shifa said, we are sure we are alone now. No one hears us. We are alone. MSF was established, one of the main principles of MSF's establishment by journalists and doctors decades ago was to provide testimony, this concept of témoignage, which means bearing witness, to provide testimony, to bear witness on these sorts of atrocities that are not exposed, and to relieve the suffering of those who experience them. And we're
The entire purpose of MSF is literally because the Western world does not give a shit about people dying overseas. So you have to put a fucking white face to it. You have to put a European face and a name to it. That's it. It's a wonderful thing that they do, by the way. Don't misunderstand me. But the real reason as to why it exists and operates is specifically so that people go, I can't really trust this Sudanese person. I can't really trust this Arab person. I can't really trust this Palestinian person. So let me listen to this white person. Like, let me listen to this person who's like an American, French, Canadian, you know what I mean? From the Western world. That is precisely the reason why they do this. Same with similar structure, the Reporters Without Borders as well. Now, obviously, listen to me. This is still, what they do is incredibly important. Like, the reason for why they have to exist, however, is mostly because the Western world will not hear the, in their Western-centric brains, will not hear out people who are victims. That is precisely the reason why when these doctors go on CNN and stuff, they don't ask them to condemn Hamas, right? But if you are a Palestinian doctor inside of Palestine, they ask you about Hamas and the fuel that Hamas is using, blah, blah, blah. Like, they do that shit all the time. But even then, it does not matter. Even then, at this point, it doesn't fucking matter. Because Israel has always had this carte blanche approach to being able to kill even white American citizens, as a matter of fact, as long as they are, trying to defend Palestinian lives. Rachel Corrie comes to mind, very public murder of Rachel Corrie in 2003. Blonde, young American woman activist, brave American activist from Washington, was ruthlessly slaughtered by an IDF bulldozer. That happened. Everybody saw it. Nobody did anything about it. So in this process, even Doctors Without Borders is not cutting it. People are just blind to it. Have you seen the Israeli representation of the UN? Yeah. Meanwhile, this is what the psychopathic Israeli ambassador to the UN is saying on UN. It's not doctors are all Hamas. Doctors Without Borders are Hamas. UNRWA is Hamas. The World Health Organization is Hamas.
Dr. Tedros, such as Mr. Lazzarini of UNRWA, such as Mr. Griffith of OCHA, from all the other libelous UN organizations, committees, and also, sadly, from the Secretary General himself. They do not reflect the situation on the ground. Yes, diplomatic niceties require us to thank them for their work. But sadly, they are relaying falsehoods that are completely detached from reality. For years, the UN has refused to establish verification mechanisms that can provide us a truthful picture of reality. WHO is it that supplies the UN with these so-called facts. Who is it that supplies the UN with these so-called facts? Is this information coming from unbiased and impartial third parties? The answer is no. Every piece of information regarding the situation on the ground that this council receives comes from Hamas, not international UN employees in Gaza. I will remind the council that
the funniest part about this is that the reason why you can't have third-party international verifiers on the ground is because Israel kills them. This is in the eve of Israel killing 110 plus UN workers. And he's also simultaneously saying that the UN workers are also biased and liars. Like, what are you fucking saying? Like, you're literally saying they're biased liars, but also simultaneously you're saying they're Hamas adjacent, while simultaneously there's no international community like organizations there. It's like, how could there ever be when you kill them and then also call the ones that are there Hamas?
That Hamas, a genocidal terror organization, controls every facet of Gaza. Every number from the so-called Ministry of Health is Hamas. Many UNRWA workers in Gaza are themselves members of Hamas. The time has come to bust the myth of UN-supplied facts.
He says the UN won't establish third-party verification on the ground, which Israel doesn't allow, by the way. Just remember that. And then says the UN members themselves are Hamas. Okay. You're surrounded by Hamas militants, dog. Maybe we should let Israel deal with that in the way that Israel knows how to deal with it while you're in the building. You know what I mean? What the fuck is this thing?
Council is being spoon-fed lies by the very same terrorist organization that deliberately murdered and maimed thousands of innocent Israelis just 34 days ago. Hamas has ensured that every square meter of Gaza is under their complete reign of terror. Many ambulances drivers are Hamas members. Local contributors to international media are Hamas members. We saw this week that innocent photojournalists for Reuters and the New York Times not only documented Hamas's horrors, but crossed into Israel to film them with the terrorists themselves.
This literally was disproven. Yeah. Everyone is Hamas except for us, but maybe we're Hamas too. I don't know how to deal with that. You have to literally be. Their line is that the journalists could have stopped October 7th. Their line is a lie anyway. None of these fucking journalists were like embedded with Hamas, even though technically in a military operation, which October 7th was a brutal, barbaric, ruthless one, okay? There are fucking journalists embedded with the IDF right now as they're mercilessly slaughtering 1,000 times more children than Hamas did, okay? But it's not allowed to kill them. If you killed them, that would be completely unacceptable. The point is, those journalists were not embedded anyway, okay? The idea that, like, journalists embedded with militants that literally document their war crimes. They're not, like, fucking censoring their faces. They're literally documenting war crimes. Like, what the fuck are you complaining about? Like, you're mad that they are documenting war crimes, dog. That is insane. How are we supposed to know what the fuck is going on in the ground? Those dudes did something incredibly fucking brave. They took photos of everything that was going on October 7th. The idea that those guys are all Hamas and deserve death is insane. Especially when you use their photography to say, look at all the fucking war crimes that Hamas engaged in on October 7th. It blows my goddamn mind. Oh my God. But yeah, everyone is Hamas until I say so. Okay? That's it. Everyone is Hamas. Every single person is Hamas. They all deserve death. This will never stop. These guys are genocidal monsters, okay? Genocidal monsters. And no one is reining them in. I don't know what to fucking say. I don't know what to do. Yeah, the My Lai massacre literally had a U.S. Army journalist with them when they executed innocent civilians. All right, let's see this. In an extended interview, Krishnan Guru Murphy asked Israel's ambassador
Do you have any empathy
to the UK, Tzipi Hotoveli, whether she has empathy for the Palestinian people. Watch in full. Let's take a look at the whole.
This small place of.
Okay, that's too long. Let's
the
just
Palestinian position?
I have zero empathy to people that time after time.
Also, the 3-minute ad break is upon us. I'm going to run it again. Sorry, I'm not. I'm just like blowing through it. I'm not doing segues right now.
Refuse to recognize the right of the Jewish state to their homeland, the Jewish people in their homeland. I have zero sympathy because I want to live in a world where we can live together.
How can you live together?
But they deny my right to exist.
If you have zero empathy, in your own words, with those people.
No, it's not what I said. I said I have zero sympathy to the fact that they lost their land. They didn't lose their land. They committed the crime of attacking the small state of Israel after the UN decision.
So do you have any empathy with the Palestinian people?
Absolutely. I think that.
What is your empathy?
I think my empathy to the Palestinian people, that we could have had a flourishing region, having the best high tech, the best life.
That's an argument.
No,
I'm asking you share their pain for a moment.
So I'll just give you an example, okay? The best flourishing economic areas are in Judea and Samaria, where you have factories that have Palestinians and Israelis working together. That could have been the vision everywhere. But when you refuse to recognize the right of a Jew to exist.
This is so funny that she's saying that. That's in the West Bank. And it's literally because you can like exploit the Palestinians in the apartheid state, but also in the occupied West Bank that they're illegally occupying. That was the entirety of the Israeli economy, you dumb fuck. That was how it worked. Until Israel was like, oh shit, we can't use Palestinian cheap labor no more because honestly, like, we're too racist for it. We have to shut everything off. We have to just like make the occupation way worse for the Palestinians. Ridiculous to prop up the illegally occupied West Bank as like an economic flourishment when the conditions of said, economic boost comes from literally indentured servitude in the form of like being victim to an occupation. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. This is where it fails. So I think this ideology that doesn't want Jews to exist, this is a tragedy. I don't think
that's not empathy.
No, what I'm trying to say that empathy comes when you have the understanding that I have the right to exist. Unfortunately, there were people in Hamas that they showed that clearly, that they didn't believe that any of the Jewish people in the state of Israel need to exist.
So there is no, the truth is there is no empathy between you and the Palestinian people.
I have empathy for the tragedy of the leadership, yes. I have empathy that they're under the tragedy of their leadership.
This is a very hopeless conversation then, isn't it?
No, it's not, because I think what's really hopeless...
I like that every conversation with an Israeli official, if they're talking to a skilled interlocutor that genuinely wants to question them, rather than just like sit there and nod, always turns into literally becoming the bloodthirsty freaks that they say Hamas is. Are there people? Oh, okay. Shit. What's the last one? This is the last one, right? Am I clothed? What am I wearing on the? Okay. Shouldn't have eaten this much, but it'll be fine. Like, it's insane to me that they'll be like, Hamas are bloodthirsty monsters that want to kill all the Jews. Like, they hate the Jews. And then they turn around and literally behave in the exact same way that they claim Hamas is, okay? And I'm sure there's people like that in Hamas. Yeah, we know that there are people like that in Hamas, for sure. But the difference is they're not getting interviewed by fucking Channel 4 and every other fucking news outlet. Like, Anderson Cooper isn't going up to, like, Ismail Haniyeh and being like, so, can you tell us what's going on with why it's totally legal and valid to do October 7? Like, it's nuts. It doesn't work that way. Can you imagine? Like, in a role reversal world where, like, Anderson Cooper is, like, in Gaza talking to fucking Ismail Haniyeh or Doha, and he's like, yeah, these Jews, they do not recognize our right to exist, which is why we hate them and want to wipe all of them out. And then Anderson Cooper's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that conversation. Now we're going to talk about how bloodthirsty the Israelis are. Like, it would never work that way. It's just insane. It doesn't work that way. Everyone would say that's fucking ridiculous. But Israel gets to do that every fucking day, every goddamn day on television.
Is to build imaginary solutions. What's really hopeless is to think that a terror organization is something that will never hurt you. I think that the imaginary and the illusionary discourse that many people have need to be stopped. You cannot build peace on lies and illusions.
All projection. I'm losing my mind. Oh, I saw this. I think he bodies this guy, right?
Because it's a convenient response, isn't it, that every time there is an Israeli strike on some sort of facility inside Gaza, you just tell us that Hamas is operating there and that's why you're fighting back. We understand that.
I'm sorry.
The UN here, though, is saying that its facility, the UN, internationally recognised body, the UN says that its facility in Gaza was attacked by your forces overnight and this morning reporting a significant number of deaths. The point is that is in contravention of international humanitarian law, and people need somewhere that is safe to go if you are telling them to evacuate from the north of Gaza.
I have to push back because the insinuation in your question is that Israel takes pleasure at taking pot shots at civilian facilities.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying at every risk.
Oh, dude. They're killing a fuck ton of people, but they don't take any pleasure in it. Okay, never mind. That's fine, dude. Again, having like an Al-Qassam guy go on television, can you imagine him being like, listen, we take no pleasure. We take no pleasure in killing Israeli children. We don't want to do it. We don't want to fucking do it, but we just got to do it. Now, even in that situation, like, it's not even comparable because, like, Hamas has no capabilities of doing October 7 over and over again. You know what I mean? Israel has already done, by the most valid metrics, 10 October 7ths. Okay? They've done 10 of those over the course of the past month. Like, think about that. They have all the power. They are the occupying force. They could just not do any of those things. This notion of, like, whether you take pleasure in it or not is completely ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the conversation at all. Oh, you don't like blowing up hospitals? Shit, man. Well, you sure do it a lot. You sure keep doing it. Can you stop? If you don't like it, maybe stop. That'd be great.
Response you make to my suggestion that you are targeting people when they are trying to find somewhere safe to go is that you tell me Hamas is operating there. This is a UN facility.
Because, Ben, Hamas has spent the last 16 years embedding itself underneath civilian areas in Gaza, building its headquarters under the hospital, exploiting ambulances, putting its own, our troops have just discovered rocket launchers and weapon silos inside schools, inside classrooms, next to children's bedrooms.
So that justifies attacking those targets, even though there are, as we've seen this morning, babies in the hospital. We've seen that innocent civilians are in the UN facilities.
The answer, which I don't know why it's cut out before, is yes. The answer is yes. Yeah.
Because it's a convenient response, isn't it? That every time there is an Israeli strike on some sort of facility inside Gaza, you just tell us that Hamas is operating there, and that's why you're fighting back. We understand that.
Sorry.
Anyway.
Or there is a safe evacuation for those babies, but it takes very specialized medical equipment to do that.
Okay, hence the call on the part of the WHO for action on this. In the meantime, there's been conflicting reports coming through overnight about the hostages. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to the US network NBC, saying that a deal is possible, could come about, and yet we're getting reports from Reuters, via Reuters, Hamas saying no, they've stopped talking because of the attacks on Al-Shifa.
Well, first of all, when it comes to the hostages, we have had for weeks speculation, the sense that perhaps a deal to release a large number of hostages in exchange for a ceasefire and possibly also the release of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Those kinds of discussions have been going on for a long time, and at various points people have said, including leading officials, that something could be close, and then it hasn't come to fruition. So it's hard to read too much into either what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying or these denials by Hamas. I mean, my sense, talking to somebody over the last week who's familiar with the negotiations, is that the process is very intense. It is certainly happening. One of the big problems is
chat. Even to logistically allow hostages breathing room so they can get above ground. Hassan is unsubstantiated, bad faith, small-minded propagandist. Thank you. Sasuke's. Following since October 17th. The notion that I am unsubstantiated because I don't fucking eat the dog shit that Israel is peddling that keeps getting fucking disproven in a matter of 3.5 seconds is the saddest level of copium that you could ever arrive at. Mr. I don't cover breaking news. You are? No. You don't have to block all these fucking dipshits, dude, even with their sock accounts. Because they're operating there, lol. Did the Allies take pleasure in World War II? Name one blown up hospital. Maybe some got their paint scuffed. Dude, that is insane. That is insane. They blew up a fucking cancer ward. They blew up in the Al Ahly hospital. They blew up the cancer ward with a fucking artillery show 3 days before the fucking back and forth happened. They've dropped bombs on damn near every hospital. Okay? Sure, they haven't leveled them. Not all of them. Give me Aquafina. What does that mean? Is that like a racist thing? Mr. I don't cover breaking news. Omega Lol. You are lol. Omega Lol is a water brand. No, someone said your username is racist. I don't know why they said that. Anyway, I mean, I think your entire existence is racist to me. The way that you're fucking operating in this chat is so psychotic. But please, just think about this a little bit. Think about this with a shred of morality, and you will recognize that Israel's actions are utterly and entirely unjustifiable. People keep referencing World War II due to Allied bombing in World War II. We got the Geneva Conventions and the IHL to stop disproportionate effects on civilians relative to military advantage. No, literally. Exactly. That's why we did that. Okay? That's why we did that. That's the whole point. Even though America does still violate it quite regularly, but nobody violates as aggressively as Israel does. It is fucking ridiculous. Holy shit. That's awesome. Oh my God, that's your butt. Okay, No, Chatter said that it's an offensive username because Aquafina sucks. Hassan spreading misinfo. Oh, that's why they said it was offensive. I don't get it. I don't understand how you could be this way. Like, explain how this is morally or legally permissible without fucking coming across as like a bloodthirsty racist monster. If your family was down there, whether held hostage by Hamas or if your family members were there, okay, because they were living in Gaza, you would never want this massive military superpower to come in and blow up the entire fucking block. You would not want that. You would not want that at all. But because you do not think that those people that are literally being blown up right now are real human beings that deserve a life of dignity, rights, liberties, that have dreams, right? You don't think about them like that, that it's totally just an afterthought for you. Okay? So go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me why this is a valid thing to do. Without trying to be like, well, Hamas is using them. Hamas is using the places. Hamas is using the hospitals. Hamas is doing this. Hamas is doing that. You can't. He's conveniently talking about the Hebron massacre and dismissing the Camp David hotel bombing in Deir Yassin, Tantura, Sabra, and Shatila. Or any number of different... I mean, he's currently talking about the Hebron massacre and likening it to October 7th. Well, simultaneously fucking not talking about... Well, simultaneously defending Israel's actions. So I know what his perspective is. I just want to hear it from him. It's such an odd line of defense that has never worked for me. I don't know why. Like, maybe I just don't just eat it, hook, line, and sinker. But it is such a weird thing to be like, we're bombing the shit out of this, like, civilian population, and it's totally valid to do that because, like, Hamas is there. Like, that doesn't work. That would never work in any other circumstance. Think about it domestically. That would not work. You would never allow in a million fucking years an entire city block to be wiped out because there's like a mass shooting that occurred there. Okay? It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. That has never happened. That has never happened in a million fucking years. It will never be appropriate. So why are you so desperately trying to make it seem like it's appropriate in this circumstance?
It's actually around communication because you have Qatar, which hosts the political offices of Hamas, acting as mediators. But certainly in the Israeli media, it's being suggested it can take anything up to 2 days for messages from the Israelis and responses to come back from...
I'll give you a good example. The Waco siege, Ruby Ridge, or the Waco siege. Completely unacceptable acts of cruelty that many dumbfuck Americans, regardless of whether they agree with the fucking psychotic right-wingers or not, would recognize as an absolutely unacceptable way of dealing with a cult. Okay? So what the fuck do you mean? Like, why is the Israeli the Israeli movement here, the Israeli Air Force and its operations, seen as like seen as morally permissible when it's like 1,000 Wacos, 10,000 Wacos? They're not building the studio behind me. They're getting dressed up and stuff. We're shooting photos today for the nude calendar. No, nude calendar. I already shot most of my photos. I have to get up and get dressed and get ready in like 20 minutes and then I'll come back after I'm done shooting. I have one last thing that I need to shoot.
So it's clearly very, very difficult, but it seems that possibility does remain on the horizon of a possible release and potentially a large number. But beyond knowing that the discussions, it seems, have been continuing up until this point, I don't think we can speculate much more.
Okay, thank you for now, Tom Bateman in Jerusalem for us. Well, now let's bring you a special report from our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, who assesses what could happen next in Gaza and in Israel.
The beds were full when Mossab Sobir was brought in wounded. Gaza's medics have to improvise. and a photo of premature babies at Shifa, the main hospital in Gaza, swaddled to stay alive after their incubators stopped working when the power ran out. All born in the cruelty of war.
Yeah, imagine if the Klan started doing terrorist bombings. You wouldn't support corporate bombing the South. Exactly. I would never support that. There are Nazis that operate within the U.S. military. I would not support nuking the entirety of the United States. There are Nazi cells that operate with no repercussions whatsoever in the South. I do not believe in blowing them up. Just like I do not agree in blowing up the entirety of Israel because of the IDF conduct so far. Okay?
In the other Hamas-Israel wars, it would be time for a ceasefire by now and back to the same uneasy status quo until the next explosion. News teams can't cross into Gaza, so they come to Sderot, the nearest Israeli town, to look in. Perhaps the biggest question is what happens in Gaza the day after? Who's going to be in charge? Israeli occupiers? An international force? Palestinians? If so, which Palestinians? This time it's different. The cost in lives from the Hamas attacks to Israel's response has thrust the conflict into unknown territory. With Israel on the attack, Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected America's day-after plan. The US wants the Palestinian Authority, rivals to Hamas, to run Gaza after the fighting, and then a Palestinian state alongside Israel. Netanyahu opposes Palestinian independence and wants Israel to control security. Danny Yatom, once the Israeli spy chief, said that's why the Prime Minister snubbed Israel's most important ally.
Israel should not stay too long in the Gaza Strip. One. Secondly, it will not be able to leave the Gaza Strip unless all the abductees are in our hands, back in a peaceful situation, and we won, we succeed. Hamas. We won the war against Hamas. Now, there is a need to define what does it mean exactly to win. I define it as the collapse of Hamas as a body.
Yeah, everyone says this is not a real valid military objective, and it's one that you can't really enforce, okay? Like, it's not even one that you can totally enforce. It's certainly one that you can actually achieve without killing a shit ton. In my opinion, I think this is just a justification for an ethnic cleansing campaign. It's the shield, the true purpose of why Israel is behaving in the way that it is in the Gaza Strip, okay? That's it. What's going on? Okay.
As an organization, losing its chain of command.
Israelis are united behind their army, but not their prime minister. These demonstrators outside his office in Jerusalem believe he is pandering to the hardline Jewish nationalists who keep him in power. Another big question for Israelis is the future of their prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He was a divisive figure before the 7th of October, and since then, a lot of Israelis have started to blame him for the security and intelligence and military errors that allowed Hamas to attack with such devastating consequences. There's anger that after Hamas killed and abducted so many, mostly Israeli civilians, military and intelligence chiefs accepted their share of the blame and the prime minister did not. And pressure is growing for a ceasefire in exchange for hostages.
What is fighting Hamas, okay? Of course, the Hamas needs to be taken down, okay? But the question of how to do it is also a significant question. And before I want to kill one single terrorist, I want each and every one of these people home. I want the 10-month-old baby home. I want the 86-year-old home. I want that more than I want dead terrorists. Once they're home, we can finish the job.
The pain and hatred unleashed since the 7th of October might overwhelm all those who still believe in peace, not permanent war. Almost every day in the West Bank, they bury more Palestinians killed in Israeli raids. This side of the occupied Palestinian territories is becoming the war's next battleground. The only answer, Western leaders say, is to revive the two-state solution, independent Palestine alongside Israel, a failed idea that survives only as a slogan. Sabri Saidam, an advisor to the Palestinian president, has heard it all before.
I think it's empty, it's meaningless if it continues to be this way. If you want to do things, don't just walk, don't just talk. You need to walk the talk, and you need to implement things. If we continue with this sloganeering without any results whatsoever, we're getting nowhere.
When this war started, Joe Biden warned Israel not to be blinded by rage, as America was after the 9/11 attacks by Al-Qaeda. Now, Israel's tactics are alarming the Americans. They reiterate support for Israel, but say too many Palestinians have been killed by the war machine they helped Israel build. Inside Gaza, Israeli military censors say we can't show the faces of soldiers we filmed. Senior Western diplomats, firm Israeli allies, told the BBC that ending the war and dealing with the aftermath will be difficult and messy. The wall between Jerusalem and the West Bank is a monument to the death of the last peace process.
So, what do we know? Well, events since the attacks of October the 7th have shown that this conflict is not something that Israel can manage and the rest of the world can ignore. There's also the history of a century of conflict between Arabs and Jews for control of this land, and that shows that there's no military solution. So if the current bloodshed doesn't lead to a new and serious attempt to make peace, then there'll be more wars for more generations.
But war hardens hearts. In Gaza today, in a brief pause, thousands more Palestinians fled the Israeli offensive. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Imagine if one of these newborns was your child. Alive, we believe, at the time the photo was taken.
Immediately I knew this has to be Channel 4. Like, that's why I scrolled down. That's why I scrolled down, because I was like, I there's no way that they would start this strong if it was just BBC.